All right, so today we're gonna take a deep dive into some pretty cool techniques for improving spoken English.
Ooh, fun.
Especially if you are, braving it alone,
Yeah.
kind of going solo on this journey. We're gonna unpack a YouTube video just absolutely packed with tips and
Nice.
techniques. And I gotta say, some of these are really insightful. For
Ooh.
example, it
Oh.
turns out that talking to yourself, it's not just like acceptable, it's actually a powerful tool.
Right.
Oh, who knew?
It's funny how we often think, like,
Yeah,
we need a partner to practice speaking.
yeah.
But this video kind of flips that idea completely on its head
Interesting.
and argues that actually solo practice is kind of the ideal way,
Okay,
especially when you're first starting out.
right.
What's fascinating to me is the psychology behind it.
Hey, I'm intrigued. Explain that.
Well, just think about it for a second.
Yeah.
Learning a new language, especially speaking it out loud,
Mm-hmm.
it can make people feel just incredibly vulnerable.
It's true.
Like you're on a stage,
Yeah.
there's all this judgment.
Big time.
But when you practice alone, that pressure just goes away.
Poof.
You've created this safe space where you can experiment, you can stumble.
Yeah.
You can just let go of that fear of making mistakes.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember when I was learning Spanish,
Okay.
I was terrified to speak it
Oh, yeah.
in front of anybody, even my tutor.
Oh, wow.
I would overthink every single sentence, worried about
Sure.
messing up the grammar or sounding
Exactly. And that fear,
Yeah.
sometimes called the affective filter in language acquisition theory,
Okay.
that can actually block your progress.
Makes sense.
When you're stressed and self-conscious,
Yeah.
it's so much harder for your brain to, absorb new language patterns.
Oh, that's interesting.
Solo practice helps lower that filter and allows you to just focus on learning.
I like that.
Yeah.
So tell me more about this talking to yourself thing. I
Okay.
have to admit,
Yeah.
the idea of narrating like my breakfast routine feels a little strange.
I hear you. It can feel a little odd at first,
Yeah.
but the video makes this point.
Okay.
It's not about, literally having a conversation with yourself.
Right.
It's about using self-talk to,
Okay.
make your English brain work a little harder.
Gotcha.
So instead of just thinking oh, I need coffee,
Yeah.
you might say out loud, man, I really need a strong coffee this morning.
Right.
It's adding those extra details,
Oh, interesting.
those little things that we use in conversation
Sure.
to make it dynamic and engaging.
So you're saying it's like
Yeah,
training yourself to think in English
exactly.
rather than translating from your native language in your head.
Exactly. That translation step can be a major roadblock to fluency.
Oh, that's a good point.
The more you can think and speak directly in English, the smoother and more natural it will be.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
The video also talks about reading aloud,
Yes.
which is something I love to do, but I always thought about it as a way to improve my comprehension.
Mm-hmm.
But this video claims that it goes way beyond that.
Cool.
That it can boost pronunciation, fluency, and even confidence.
I love that.
Yeah.
What's interesting here is the multisensory aspect of reading out loud.
Okay.
So your eyes are scanning the words, your mouth is forming the sounds,
Yeah.
your ears are hearing the pronunciation.
Right.
It's really interesting.
Yeah. It's like a full sensory workout
Yeah.
for your language skills.
Exactly. Like you're immersing yourself
Cool.
in the sounds and the rhythms of English.
I like that.
And they even suggest specific ways to make it even more effective.
Oh, cool. Like what?
So, for example, they recommend starting slowly, focus on clear articulation,
Okay.
and then gradually increasing the speed
Makes sense.
as you get more comfortable.
Kind of like warming up your vocal cords for
Exactly.
performance.
Totally. And then they have this other interesting tip about reading a passage twice.
Okay.
The first time, purely focused on pronunciation.
Okay.
And the second time, add in emotion, like character,
Ooh.
almost like an actor
Oh, I love that.
delivering lines.
That's a cool idea.
So you go from technical
Yeah,
to expressive.
I like it.
Yeah, and I think that can really help you internalize the natural intonation
Right.
and rhythm of English.
For sure.
Speaking of music, the video then introduces this concept of narrating your day.
Okay, so this is like taking the self-talk to a whole other level.
Yes.
I'm all ears. Tell me more.
It's about transforming your everyday life into a constant language learning opportunity.
Okay.
So instead of just talking about what you're doing,
Mm-hmm.
you actively describe everything that's happening around you using English.
Okay, so instead of just thinking, ugh, the traffic is terrible,
Yeah.
I would say, wow, look at this traffic jam. It's going to take me forever to get home.
Exactly. It's about flexing those descriptive muscles,
Yeah.
pushing yourself to use more varied vocabulary
I like it.
and grammar structures.
Okay.
But what's so cool here is the subtle mindset shift
Yeah.
Instead of seeing language practice as this separate scheduled activity, you're integrating it into like the fabric of your day.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah.
I could see how that would make a huge
So
difference.
it's like every moment is a mini lesson.
Yeah, the video also highlights how narrating your day can actually help solidify your grammar
Oh, yeah? How so?
because it forces you to use all these different tenses naturally.
Oh, that's true.
Like I woke up early or I'm going to the store later.
Makes sense.
I wish I had more coffee.
Exactly. You're constantly like switching between past, present, and future
Right.
without even thinking about it, which helps those structures become more ingrained.
Interesting.
Yeah. And then as you describe your surroundings and observations, you naturally expand your vocabulary.
Totally.
That dog looks so happy.
Yeah.
The flowers are starting to bloom. The sky is this beautiful shape of blue today.
Right.
All these things that you see.
Yeah, okay, this is all great, but I know that the video also brings up something that I think a lot of people dread,
Uh-oh. What's that?
and that is listening to their own recorded voice.
Oh, yeah.
I can't say I blame them.
Right.
I cringe every time I hear myself on a voicemail.
Uh-huh. Yeah, it can be a little jarring.
But the video argues that it's crucial for improvement.
It is. It's all about gaining that objective perspective.
Yeah,
We often have this distorted view of how we sound,
right.
and listening back lets us hear ourselves like other people hear us,
Yeah.
which can be really helpful.
Okay, so any tips on how to make that process less painful?
Yeah, they suggest starting small,
Okay.
record yourself saying just a couple sentences,
Okay.
and gradually work your way up.
Right.
And I think another good tip is to try to focus on, like, noticing patterns
Yeah.
or, like, common errors
Right.
rather than getting hung up on every single little detail.
That's a good point. It's easy to get discouraged.
Totally.
If you're like, oh my gosh, I mispronounced that word.
Right. It's more helpful to look for those recurring issues that
Exactly.
you can actually work on.
I like that.
It's like athletes watching game footage.
Okay.
They're not like dwelling on every mistake.
Right.
They're using it as an opportunity to grow
Makes sense.
and improve.
Progress, not perfection.
Exactly.
Love that analogy.
And speaking of techniques that can help you sound more natural and fluent,
Yes.
the video dives into two powerful tools,
Okay.
shadowing and echoing.
I have to admit, I'm not super familiar with these, so
Oh, okay, cool.
break it down for me.
They're both fantastic techniques
Uh-huh.
for improving your pronunciation and your fluency.
Oh, right.
And they work by basically training your mouth and your ears
Okay.
to work together more
That I
effectively.
gotcha.
So echoing is essentially listening to a phrase or a sentence
Okay.
and then repeating it after a pause.
Right.
So you hear the audio process
Right.
and then try to replicate it.
Okay, got it. So what about shadowing?
Shadowing is more like mimicking in real time.
Okay.
So you listen to the audio and you speak along with it,
Wow.
trying to match the speaker's rhythm and intonation.
Oh, that sounds challenging.
It is, but it's incredibly effective
Okay.
for developing fluency and a more natural flow.
Interesting.
It forces you to anticipate the sounds and rhythms,
Okay.
which helps you move away from like that word-by-word translated speech
Yeah.
that a lot of learners struggle with.
Right. So it's like you're syncing your brain up with the speaker's brain.
Exactly. It's almost like you're merging your voice with theirs, trying to get that seamless flow.
I like that.
The video uses this analogy like echoing is like copying a painting stroke by stroke,
Right.
whereas shadowing is more like dancing with a partner,
Oh, wow.
trying to move in sync with them.
Yeah. I like that both techniques sound super helpful.
Yeah.
I can see how shadowing would be really good for like developing that natural, intuitive sense of the language's rhythm.
Totally.
Okay, so before we wrap up,
Okay.
the video also touches on the role of language learning apps,
Yeah.
especially for people who are maybe a little shy
Right.
or prefer like a more structured approach
Yeah, for sure.
to practice.
Absolutely. Apps can be fantastic tools,
Yeah.
especially for pronunciation practice.
Okay,
You get that instant feedback, which can be so helpful
makes sense.
for identifying those areas where you might need to adjust, like your tongue placement
Right.
or your mouth movements.
It's like having a virtual pronunciation coach
Exactly.
right in your pocket.
Yes,
But like the video points out, apps should really be seen as supplements,
I agree.
not replacements for these core techniques we've been talking about.
Exactly. Apps are great for targeted practice.
Yeah,
But they shouldn't be your only strategy.
right.
It's like if you're learning to play piano,
Yeah.
practicing scales on an app can be helpful,
Sure.
but it's not going to teach you how to play a beautiful piece of music.
Right. You still need to practice playing full pieces.
Yeah.
Experimenting with different styles.
Exactly. It's the same with language learning.
Makes sense.
You need that well-rounded approach,
Right.
combining different techniques
Yep.
to develop fluency, confidence, and a natural flow.
So as we kind of wrap up this deep dive into solo English practice,
Okay.
what's the biggest takeaway you want listeners to remember?
I think the biggest takeaway is you don't need a partner
Right.
to make significant progress with your spoken English.
That's encouraging.
You have so many techniques
Yeah.
at your disposal that you can use anytime, anywhere.
And remember, consistency is key.
Yes.
It's about finding ways to weave those practices into your daily routine.
Yeah, even if it's just for a few minutes each day.
Yeah, little by little, it all adds up.
Exactly. Those small, consistent efforts will get you amazing results over time.
And I think it's important to remember that language learning is a journey,
It is.
not a destination.
Yes,
It's about embracing the process.
absolutely.
Celebrating those small wins, being patient with yourself.
Exactly. Don't get bogged down by perfection.
Right.
Focus on progress.
Right, like it.
And most importantly, have fun.
Yes.
Experiment. Find what works for you.
Yeah.
And just enjoy the journey.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So as our listeners kind of embark on their own solo practice adventures,
Yes.
I'm going to leave them with a final question to think about.
Ooh, I like it. What's the question?
What's one small step you can take today
Okay.
to put one of these techniques into action?
Love it.
Will you narrate your commute?
Ooh.
Will you read a few pages out loud from your favorite book?
Nice.
Maybe try shadowing a short video clip.
Yeah.
The choice is yours, but the key is to take action
Do it.
and keep that momentum going.
Every step, no matter how small it is, brings you closer to fluency.
That's it for our deep dive into solo English speaking practice.
Awesome.
Until next time, happy practicing. 16, 1691, 16.